Okay, welcome to Lecture 4, World Regional Geography. Today we're going to cover Latin America and a little bit of the Caribbean. Remember, this is chapters 10 and chapter 4 in your readings. We're going to begin with the physical geography of Latin America and the Caribbean. And on this slide, you'll notice three areas that I wanted to point out. I'll begin with the black triangle in the western upper margin of the map. There you'll notice the area that we consider Central America, and that includes the Sierras of Mexico down through the Central American Cordillera and into South America. To the east, you'll notice the red triangle, which designates the Caribbean arc. This is the Antillean archipelago with the Greater Antilles to the west and north of the triangle, and Lesser Antilles to the south and east. The yellow triangle indicates the Andes mountain chain, which is the major spine of the South American continent. To the east of it is the major basin known as the Amazon Basin. We can also notice to the west of the yellow triangle the major subduction trench, where the Pacific crustal plate is sliding under South America. It is this interaction of the plate margins, both along the west coast of South America as well as along the Caribbean margin, that produces much of the tectonic activity, volcanoes, earthquakes, and mountain building of the region. If we examine the ecological geography or biogeography of Latin America, one of the most important aspects of that geography is the extent of tropical forests throughout Latin America. Tropical forests, both dry and rainforests, exist to the eastern side of the major cordilleras, that is the Andes Mountains, as well as the Central American Cordillera. These tropical forests are home to the majority of the diversity in the region, and in fact, it is estimated that half of the world's biodiversity occurs within tropical rainforests. It is also important to understand that these rainforests are being lost at a remarkable rate, and with this loss comes several major concerns in terms of loss of biodiversity and loss of the potential benefits to humans through pharmaceuticals, as well as the species that are yet to be discovered within the region. Now, the major cause of this deforestation is associated with agricultural practices. In the next couple of slides, we'll see what the implications and what the causes of that deforestation are. Several factors lead to deforestation within tropical regions, the largest of which is the conversion of land from forest cover to various forms of agriculture. In the Amazonian basin, the largest extent of this conversion typically occurs associated with agricultural conversion to pasture land and large-scale ranching operations. While it is true that small-scale farming and indigenous populations conversion does have an impact, these are usually much less substantial than those associated with large-scale farming. It is also true that deforestation does occur in order to produce pulpwood for paper products and for export timbers. But again, we have to understand that the large-scale conversions that we see in the lower image are much more the norm and are the types of conversion that many countries' governments are working to prevent. The ecological impacts of deforestation in the region can also be associated with the broader population changes that have occurred in Central and South America. Central and South America are home to nearly 400 million people, and that population is very unevenly distributed throughout both Central and South America. If we look at the map of population density, one of the things that we'll notice is that in Central America, the majority of the population occurs in the higher altitude regions and along the western coast of Central America. In South America, the majority of the high density populations occur along the east coast of South America in the areas of southern Brazil and into Argentina. In the north of the continent, the majority of the population occurs along the North Atlantic and Caribbean coasts. The population distribution throughout Central America and South America has consistently been tied to the coastal regions. It is important to note, though, that in recent years, the transportation network has expanded throughout the southern portion of South America and throughout Central America. As a result, increasing population distributions towards the middle of the continent and throughout Central America has occurred. This has improved the transportation of goods and services and has improved the economy of the region. It is also important to note that there is an increasing level of overland transportation between Central America and South America, and the importance of the Trans-American Highway and the movement of goods and services along it has improved the economies and the interconnectedness of the region's countries. Transportation and population centers throughout Latin America have often focused on primate cities, that is, cities whose populations are substantially larger than any other city within a country. These primate cities often were the center of culture, economy, and government. However, in recent years, the number of smaller cities, cities with important aspects of economic or cultural development for the regions, have begun to emerge. And as we can see in this slide, there are a large number now of populated areas, cities, and large towns that contribute to the economic and cultural development in Latin America. And so the true primacy of the traditional cities has begun to diminish. It's a very important, very positive movement for many of the countries to see the diversity and the development of multiple urban centers. Cultural legacies of Latin America are dominated by the histories of three interacting world influences. Many of these came into being during the colonial period. The South American and Central American landscapes were populated by indigenous populations that were centered in the high plateaus of Mexico as well as along the Andean mountain chain. Into these broad and well-developed cultures came the Iberian influences of Spain and Portugal during the Age of Exploration. Following this period, the slave expansion throughout the Americas introduced African cultures into South and Central America. As a result, today we see the strong influences of Afro-Brazilian culture, Afro-Caribbean culture in the Greater and Lesser Antilles, as well as the mestizo and indigenous populations within Central and South America, and of course the Iberian influences of Spain and Portugal remain strong in the region. Today, these areas are also part of a greater world cultural influence where music, language, food cultures, and influences of syncretic religions are seen throughout the world, and South America and Central America's influence. It is important to understand that term that I just used, syncretic religions. And what I mean by this is the influences and the interactions of traditional religions and world religions such as Catholicism and the influence of indigenous and African spiritual traditions, which amalgamate into single complex religions of the region. Like the evolving importance of Latin America's culture on the world stage, Latin and South America are increasingly important in world economies. As can be seen through the importance of Mexico in the North American Free Trade Agreement, which links Canada, the United States, and Mexico in a common trade bloc, Mercosur in South America links the countries of Argentina, Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Venezuela, as well as affiliate members Chile, Bolivia, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru, into a single important trading bloc. While Mercosur has suffered in recent years from movements between the importance of political and economic trade and integration. It remains an important part of the growing economic influence of the Latin American region. To conclude the introduction to Latin America, I want to use a small case study on the concept of maquiladoras. Maquiladoras exist along the Mexican American coastal regions as well as Mexican American interior border. You'll notice one of the major ones on the coastal region of Matamoros, and the secondary one in Ciudad Juarez. Maquiladoras are areas of manufacturing that have developed since the implementation of NAFTA. And in each of these regions, manufacturing develops where labor is relatively inexpensive and the transportation networks within the Americas makes it economically viable and, in fact, economically advantageous to ship completed parts into the maquiladoras for assembly and then to ship the finished goods back into the United States or overseas. The development of maquiladoras has presented some problems in the United States because these are one of the main areas where jobs are in fact outsourced. Manufacturing that used to occur in the United States and Canada is now moved immediately south of the border to develop in these areas.